Hello viewers, and welcome to this video looking at Grid. Something different today. Again, the name banner comes up to be nice and professional. There we are. If you don't follow me on Twitter, follow me on there and keep up with lots of news on VVV and what I do and all that jazz. Now, today this is just a preview on Grid. It's really just a quick look at the game before, of course, the final release next month. Seen here running on the PC. It was running there on the PlayStation as well, and I didn't get a chance to have a look at it on the PlayStation because I didn't know when I turned up which
Time to make your way out of the shade of the palm trees and find a good spot to watch the action here at Tristan,
but either way, I just wanted to get stuck into the game. This was my first hands-on the game, and it was I have to admit I haven't kept track of all what was new in the game and what was new added this time. So I think the first thing for me was, obviously, I know Fernando Alonso's Formula 1 car is in the game. I'm a Formula 1 fan above all else. I'm going to jump in and do a bit of F1. So there we are, and just a hello to the viewers that are watching today as well. I'm going to chime in from time to time, catch up with all of your comments and stuff like that. There is a nice intro to the game, and do let me know if you can hear the game okay when you're watching as well. But there's a nice sort of intro with the various commentators, and they do an introduction to the stages, and we'll look at that later on in another video. I just found the mouse was on screen there, moved it off, wasn't aware whether the mouse was or wasn't, so I couldn't tell. And now you're going to see a few mistakes as I don't know what buttons to press, and I'm learning. This is just raw video of me going right, that's the rewind button. I was actually trying to find the view change at this point. I'm hitting every single button. For whatever reason, the view change button wasn't that responsive for me. So I just wanted to find the view change button there. The first things you notice with Grid are going to be visually, it's nice, it's Codemasters, it's got lots of detail, everything looks good, everything sounds good.
Tristan, this Havana circuit
that's all looking good at this stage.
One of our drivers
in terms of the game and game structure, I don't need to career mode or
great street
anything.
circuit, Alex.
And I've just been told the race is seconds away from lights out.
Too much time on that. Suffice to say that Grid is always fun when it's competitive. Again, here I'm still looking into buttons and stuff like that. This is with assists on. So obviously we're learning how to play the game with assists on because I don't know which way to drive, and so later in the video, or later in this stream, you'll see me driving these courses with less than assists on until I've no assists at all. And as you can see, assists on didn't save the car. The car was too rigid for these very bumpy curves. So we've got a bad mix. Thanks for letting me know, Dor.
Tell us what's in store.
For letting me know.
Yeah,
So I
I can't
have
wait for the
no
race to
feedback
get
at the
underway.
moment.
All right, we'll get back to that shortly because it's time to get started.
Just turn down the videos. There we are. That's better. So this is all new for me at the moment, trying to show videos on a stream, and I'm new showing on Streamlabs, and the controls are completely different to OBS, and they don't let you skip or interact with videos, so I can't skip to the points I want to show you. I have to play through the whole video, but there you go. So as you can see, racing wise, make a couple of mistakes early on, learn about the curbs, and then get to work then. More progressive on the power. This is a strange game in the sense that you turn in hard, the back end will stand out, you'll need to correct it. However, there is weight and inertia and traction in there, so you need to drive it sort of tippy-toeing a bit. The car's a little bit unstable at high speeds, not necessarily this car so much as some of the others. So it's a very much a swervy Grid style to it. Lots of people in the chat as well, and it's good to see all of you here as well. And apologies for the mic problems early on. Again, it's a learning process for me at the moment, trying to get everything organised here and work out how everything's balanced and where all the audio is coming from as well. I did an audio test the other day, and we have made progress on that, no doubt. It'll give you that nice radio vibe. But as you can see, graphics really nice. The car is quite rigid, as you'd expect it to be. This being a new course, this is quite wide. I felt this was kind of a suitable course for the Formula 1 cars. Works well. I really like city tracks. If only more city tracks had roads this wide to race around, you'd get a lot more overtaking. I better get it together, or else. I know. Yeah. Well, do you know, there's always a strict audience of expectation viewers when it comes to feedback, and at the moment getting there with all the equipment. That's the main thing. And it means also I can do these previews live. So where I've recorded these videos over many years to you guys, just me with a camcorder, now at least I can you know, take your feedback and, you know, put it together and, you know, combine all that sort of thing. So at the moment what I'm doing is I'm taking notes on the various audio settings, so at least you guys can hear me better and better as the video goes on. By the time we get to the end, everything will be perfect. Next video will be better. So a few problems, a few teething problems to start off with, and then once we get into it, then we'll be in good shape. So as you can see, I've taken the lead now. I've sort of worked out roughly my way around the track. And what you'll see in this video is a progressive learning all the way through the video, where I'm learning the track, going faster and faster and faster. I think there was one curb where I went on 2 wheels earlier. I've probably missed that now while I've been talking. Maybe it's the next lap. And I just say, right, that's it. Let's get on with it now. We're running here on medium settings. There are much harder settings you can race on if you want a bigger challenge. So for me, how you'll see this video today is how I recorded Grid yesterday. So you're going to see some learning, you're going to see some progression, some learning, and as I develop myself, you know, you'll see me turning off the assists and gradually making mistakes and trying to figure out how the handling works and find out where the sort of grip limit is and stuff like that, and see it progressively. And that's what you do. You turn up to a session. I know people don't always know what it's like at these sessions, but you come into a room, you play a game you've never seen before, and you just have bit of time to play it and put it together really, and then walk away with your impressions. And we're going to talk about this with Kevin in a lot more detail on a team chat at launch as well. Obviously we like to have our good little natter between us, and Kevin knows there we go. Whee! The downforce didn't save me there. No, it's you've got to watch those curbs, and you see I psychologically you take that in and you're like, ooh, I know that's a dodgy curve now, so when I'm in a Le Mans car or a Formula 1 car, I'm going to steer clear of the inside apex, and that won't happen. And, well, absolutely. You know, I like to make things as professional as possible, everybody, on the streams. You know, I do what I can. There is a couple of cars we can't drive in this video, and that was the Ferrari and the Aston Martin, but they are in the game, so you'll see them driving around. No news on GTR 3, no. We're going to talk about that in a separate video. So, yeah, racing round, obviously improving, learning a lot on grid, and I just wanted a feel for the Formula 1 car, and I thought that gave me a bit of a feel. And in a moment, we're going to look at some of the other cars, the touring cars and stuff like that. There was limited time, so you're not going to see everything in the game in this video. This is just a preview. But for me, it's a chance to say, right, let's try out the handling with assists on. Let's find out what the buttons are. Let's try one of the new courses. Let's look at the replay modes. For me, one of the big things about Grid, the original game, was actually the replay modes. Driving around San Francisco with the replay was fantastic. You had things bouncing around, the car was bouncing around, you could see your driver in the cockpit driving. I thought the replays in the original Grid were amazing. Here, of course, it's a bit more difficult to do when you have more of a generic F1 car, but the F1 car itself looks good. And it's a good opportunity for Codemasters to reuse assets from F1 as well, isn't it, really? Like you said, they've already got it modelled there. Why not just place it into this game, get the licensing, and clearly whoever handles the Renault. It's always funny, isn't it, how you can get licenses for some, for some cars much easier than others. So that kind of concludes that race. And now I'm going to take a look at my next video and just see what the next one, part 2 of our video is. That concluded that run. And now on to the next one. And the audio balance may change, so do let me know if the audio balance changed. Have I watched Kuru HS? I have watched Kuru, yes. I tuned in the other day to a bit of Need for Speed action, but he gets so many messages. It's very difficult to say hello and meet people on Twitch. But yeah, they just sort of fly up there, don't they? But he's a very skillful Need for Speed player. And I like a bit of skill. You know, I like watching skillful players do their thing. So, on to touring cars then. And again, I just wanted to see what the different handling was like. We've gone from the rigid Formula 1 car. Let's go to something a bit more rugged. As ever, audio sounding good at this stage. And for those of you that are looking forward to it, we're going to have some sort of no comment gameplay on the VV YouTube channel. So if you want to see this without my talking, that's fine. Sydney Circuit is back from Race Driver 3. It's good to see these circuits coming back, isn't it? I played a lot of Toka Race Driver 2. That's the game I played the most of, and I really enjoyed Toka Race Driver 2, which ran at 60 frames per second on the original Xbox and was amazing at the time. Amazing online. So, competitive racing action here. Now, assists are on. And I found traction control very, very intrusive at this point. This is the full setting. So I will continue this race, but I will find myself, you know, sort of pushing to get through. It was hard to get through cleanly, if I'm honest. I wanted to get through this cleanly, learn my way around the course first, because I have to admit I struggle to remember all these different courses in games. I race so many racetracks that I need a couple of laps sometimes to familiarise myself with them and look for the overtaking opportunities. And they are few and far between on this track. Actually, it's a very twisty circuit. It's apex into apex, and it's very challenging to find a way past besides just outbraking your opponents. And when I talk about outbraking, the method I would tend to use is you brake very hard at the same time as the other car brakes, then you release your brake and you roll as deep into the corner as you can and hit the brakes again. I hope that reduced speed is enough for the brakes to actually handle, and that often gives you that late braking feeling. And we've got, let's see, we've got Jeff here as well. Hello Jeff and Monaco. Why isn't Toyota in grid? Well, Toyota have got their issues, haven't they, with car racing games at the moment, so we'll see what happens there, but they are in the recent WRC game. I'm going off there because I'm just trying to get rugged now. I'm doing a bit of dynamic overtaking of cars, and I was enjoying myself actually racing this. Of course, here I'm checking out the Cockpit Cam. It doesn't seem as intense as previous grid games, does it? Previous grid games was all sort of bouncing around, and I felt that it was less rugged than I expected a grid game to be internally. I just felt it was a bit rigid, a bit, you know, like your guy's completely flat, and I just felt that for you know, dare I say it, a game with a sort of arcade pedigree, it just needed a bit more movement in it. It needed a bit more visceral feeling of being in the car. I felt it didn't feel very visceral. That's really what kind of let this down. Very rigid environment. There's not enough dynamic movement and stuff like that. So it's something which I was expecting a bit more, and we'll see what comes with development in these final few weeks, or what they're adding and doing. I mean, obviously you have to remember this is unfinished code we're looking at here. They're always improving on it, working on it. There'll be a day one patch, and that'll add some bits and bobs as well. So, but either way, working through, got a bit more aggressive as the race went on, and a look at touring cars here. Some of these clips may be quite short. I have no idea, so I'll go through them. I did look at the replay mode again here as well, just to see a little bit about what it was like. Or maybe I'm talking to somebody. Occasionally I talk to people when I'm playing games and I forget what I'm doing, and that means I've just got to waste time with you guys for 5 minutes while it comes up. So then into the racing, and just see here a bit of replay. I think here I just spend a bit of time just looking at some of the cameras, but also there's a bit of a slow-mo option as well, and I just wanted to see how the slow-mo option worked predominantly. Again, not the sort of shaky dynamic cameras that you'd have in a replay in the original grid, and I felt that the shaky dynamic cameras gave you that feeling of speed, of violence of the cars coming by. There was a feeling of violence. Tanoop, there is weather changes. There is not weather change, not dynamically, but there is some weather, and we're going to see that later in the video, which makes a big difference to the handling as well. So you will need to be a lot more careful on the handling. I think I've paused it somewhere here and just try and work out how to do slow-mo. Slow-mo is done with, I think, with a stick, and it's a little bit overly sensitive in terms of trying to maintain a certain speed. I'd much prefer it if there was an arrow where you could just click, you know, half speed, full speed, quarter speed, rather than control it with stick, because if you're going to do a slow-mo scene, it's almost impossible to hold that stick in a position. You know, once I actually had to sellotape the stick down to a certain point so I could record the footage I need. It was completely pointless really, but it gave me a consistent slow-mo of the car going around the corner, and I just think sometimes it's much easier as a content creator as well, if you're going to show slow-mo clips, just to have a set speed. Works well dynamically, but that's something which you know, works really well. I'm going to catch up with a lot of your chat after this, actually, viewers, so do put the chat in, but I'm going to catch up with it. This is where I was just trying to work out the slow-mo and seeing how that works, and going from there. Now, I'm not wearing my headphones while I do this, so I actually can't hear the game at all. It's completely silent to me, so you guys are hearing the game, but this is all part of learning and doing new things. I will do another test video one of these days where I go through and you know, just see how I get on in putting it all together. So now we're going to look at our next video, and we're going to go here. So I can't remember what we're doing now. I think we're doing Silverstone. I think we're going to look at it in a moment. Silverstone, is it Silverstone? We'll see. We'll see. I do go through the whole range of different courses in these videos, and you'll see some wet weather racing to come. So you know, that'll be something. And I just want to say a big thanks to everybody tuning in to watch this preview today as well. While we're waiting here as well, Doris has to go, and bye bye. Thanks for tuning in. And what have we got? Am I going to get a DD1 from Fnatic? No, I don't think so. I don't know. I'm not. I don't know if I'm in their good books or not. So I wouldn't know. Which I don't have a full car list. That's another thing as well. I don't actually have a full car list handy. Maybe there's one out there that I should have. Maybe there's a track. There is a track list around, but there is a car list around, I think, somewhere. But I don't necessarily have it right now. For me, it was more predominantly about the driving and the feeling and the physics rather than the cars that are in the game. You can have masses of cars in games, but if you don't get the basics right, then it's not going to work. Now, next up, we have Silverstone. And again, the announcers are doing their thing. I don't know if you can hear the announcers. I'll just go quiet.
Time, our drivers are having last-minute discussions with their team and getting prepared to head to their vehicles.
Okay, so you can just hear the announcers for a second. You've got a US and Australian announcer there, which kind of works for the US and Australian races, but I think it'd be nice to have had a British announcer for Silverstone, just giving you that Silverstone feeling. I always point out to it as a very cold and windy place, and it often is cold and windy, but my goodness me, has it been upgraded from what it was when I first went there many years ago. So racing round then, I think it's the Group 2 GT class, GT2, is it GT3? Racing round, I always forget my car classes, I'm terrible for that, dreadful for that. But racing round here, I think I altered some settings, and as this video goes on, I'll alter some of the settings and reduce them down eventually to 0 to see how the traction affects the car. This car I found quite challenging to drive because it sweeps out in the corners, and just checking that. It sweeps out in the corners, and it's actually more tricky to drive into fast corners than slow corners, which is something I found unusual, and you're going to see that quite here. So we're going up now, Wellington Straight, braking hard into Luffield, and getting on the inside there. That's okay. And then we're looking for a nice run. So I found a nice progressive control around the outside of these guys here, where I could just balance the throttle at a point that gave me just more traction, and that worked really well for me. That actually worked well in online multiplayer as well as the CPU cars as well. I noticed that you could just balance the throttle a bit if you're used to racing games and car control. Now we come to a very fast corner, Copse Corner, and I got to this point, and the car just, do you see what it did there? It did what I call a grid handling effect, where you turn in, the back end steps out, and you immediately use opposite lock. Now I'm a wheel player rather than a pad player there, but I suppose in a way I just wasn't expecting the car to behave in that way. It sort of took me by surprise. That doesn't say it's wrong because it's grid. It just means you've got to play it the way it's supposed to be played. You've got to step on the brakes, you've got to throw it in, you've got to give some opposite lock. Whereas for me, what I'm doing is I'm braking before the corner and I'm gently accelerating into the corner. I'm trying to get my head around it now. I'm thinking, what happened there? What happened? There is an annoyance and a confusion in me as a gamer when I go off that it annoys me, because the competitive racer in me just wants to do well and win. That's it. So racing round, and I think to myself, wow, you know, I'm last. Let's take a look at some of the settings in a moment. So I'm going to go to that and try those out. GT4 cars. Minarco, thank you for clarifying that to me. It was on the screen and I just missed it. When I look at these videos, I see a very small monitor, so it's not actually, I can't actually read it from here. I can't read anything on the screen hardly. But I'm reducing the traction control to 3 out of 5. I thought, let's reduce it slowly. Let's see what its ultimate impact is, and then let's just reduce it from there in terms of getting an idea on the handling. And that doesn't mean that instantly you get it. You're going to do what you were doing a minute ago, and then you just start flying straight off the course. So that's going to be something interesting. Got cars going all over the place here. He was just right in my way. But yeah, that was the end of that. It was just a quick one-lap race. Sometimes when you're doing these sessions, we haven't got time for lap after lap after lap. Let's just run a couple of runs. And I don't know how long this video is, so then we'll move on to the next one, of which there are a few. So, restarting the race then with the new settings, and it changes the body language of the car quite considerably in terms of stability. I actually found the car more stable with the assist turned off than on, because it relied a lot more on you in terms of progressive power. And this is always a tricky corner anyway. Extra tricky in grid, I find these slow corners. Fast corners and very slow corners. It's funny how the car behaves, but it does still retain that griddy handling. And so onto this high-speed straight again. And just thinking to myself at this point, you know, I've got to find a way through. I'm not entirely certain how the car's going to brake or handle. And I wasn't entirely certain what to do about Copse Corner either. Should have gone round the outside again. Didn't. Thought I'd go up the inside. Wasn't the way to go. Get stuck behind this Mustang here. And looks great though. Sounds great as well. Muscling my way through on the inside. Don't do that in real life. And again, up on the inside here. And thinking, well, this isn't good, but maybe I can just outbrake these guys. And I got hit, and then I get hit again here, and that was that basically. So that's no good. I'm going to do something I never normally do. This will be cut from any video. You will not see this on YouTube. Usually is a rewind, but I thought no, let's just try and understand that again. Okay, understand what happened there. So I'm going to do it slightly differently. Let him just barge me into the barrier. So that guy was having none of it there, was he? We were never going to get through that in one piece. So at least progressively we're through the corner, and I improve on that lap after lap, just understanding a bit more about where to brake and where to turn in. It's almost like there's a strange sort of, if anyone's played grid, there's a sort of sweeper handling to grid, and that's really, and we've got Mamulit here as well. Hello. And it's great to see everybody tuning in as well. Great to see you guys on a Friday afternoon tuning in to a bit of grid racing to see what it's all going to be about when it comes out next month. Not long now to the release of Grid, and great to finally get a hands-on as well. It's, you know, we do try and show all the racing games we can at VVV. It's good to get a hands-on and show this off to you guys. So going into the final couple of corners, these are always tricky because with low traction as it is, the car can spin out very easily. I found this point to be the most difficult on the track for this car. The rear end, there's just so much power coming through it now. It's sliding everywhere, so I just couldn't get on the power there. I couldn't find the balance at this point. And Cobra was just saying about being expensive. I didn't realise it was that expensive, but well, I have spoken to a community manager at Codemasters about tracks and circuits, but I don't know what the overall ultimate plan is. So we'll just have to wait and see what they decide to do. But as I don't want to say at the moment, but as I understand it, there's no charges. But I've not had any official word on that, so we'll just wait and see what the structure is for DLC. But if all goes well and the DLC is free for this game, then that will really help it, because this is a game that needs content. It has many disciplines in it, and it has many disciplines and many different sort of tracks and you know, cars types, but it needs, with the amount of car types it has, it needs a lot more in the way of, you know, tracks to go with those. So we're now switching to wet weather in a Dodge Viper. This is not a good combination, viewers. Okay, a muscle car in the rain is not a good combination. And what did we notice there? The car was very sensitive at high speed. It needed a bit more turning, but if I turned any more, the rear end was going to stand out. Much like Cop's Corner earlier, if you remember when I turned it. So you've got to learn how to position the car before you get to the corner, and then you can drive through it. So straight away you've got some understeer in the wet weather conditions, and you've got a lot less traction, and traction control's been turned down slightly, but it's made a radical difference. I mean, if you noticed at the beginning of the video, the Formula 1 car was spinning out with full traction control. Now we have lower traction control. It's even more challenging. Now I love this circuit. It's a great circuit here. It's got a nice feel to it. Obviously it's from the previous Grid games, but it's a good circuit anyway. And I haven't played the PS4 version, but it was on display yesterday, and it did look pretty much identical to what you're seeing here on a PS4 Pro. But I didn't have the chance to play it or record it, sadly, which was a bit of a shame. But I would like to have had a go. But either way, from what I could see, looked pretty good. But I didn't really spend more than 2 minutes looking at it before grabbing my seat on the version that was available for me, which is this one. But either way, it should run pretty well. I mean, Grid, if you think about it, it's an older game, and applying these new effects and everything, they should be able to optimize it pretty well for the modern consoles. And it, you know, as I say, it looked to be running very smoothly on the 60 frames on the PS4 Pro from what I could see. So, you know, we'll see. It should be about what you're seeing here. Well, I mean, obviously this was in Grid 2, and this was one of my. I mean, Grid 2 had some really good circuits in it. It had some strange handling aspects to it. Wasn't the game everybody wanted it to be. Again, that same corner caught me out again. It's just the high-speed direction change I'm trying to figure out. As I mentioned, the Dodge Viper probably wasn't the best car to choose for the conditions, the circuit, or the assist level. But this is what it's all about. It's good to use a car like this, because I say it doesn't want to turn corners in the best of times. So you want to get used to progressively accelerating and braking into a corner. Still using a racing line here. I wasn't necessarily using a racing line myself. It's just on screen. I do turn it off eventually. That was mainly there to go to new circuits. I don't know. And we will check out a couple of new circuits. But let's talk about the wet weather for a second. Looks great, doesn't it? Really nice. I like the water on the screen. Reminds us a lot of what we saw in WRC8 recently. I like the water texture on the track and some of the sort of splash effects. I like the sunlight glinting on the circuit, which into a corner that we'll be coming to shortly. Nice little effects, and it gives you a great feeling of speed as well. And this circuit always gave you a great feeling of speed, lots of detail. So nice to see. Trying to avoid him there. He was braking very early for that corner. Sometimes the AI is quite challenging to race against, because they, as you can see there, they brake very heavily and they get on the power very quickly, and it sort of creates a yo-yo effect. And there you go, there's that sunlight effect through there, which I think looks fantastic. It's a really nice effect it gives it. Would be great if there was almost a developing racing line in a way, sort of a drier line, but we'll see that next gen, no doubt. Oh, I can't confirm the core elements that are in the game at this stage. I'm literally at the moment going to be focusing on this video, and then obviously we'll come to the review soon. There'll be a full breakdown on the game, and then I'll tell you my opinions on what I think of everything in the game, along with Kevin. And we've got obviously the review for WRC to go up as well. They got slightly delayed. We did record it, but there was an audio problem, as they happen, and that delayed it slightly. So. Gradually learning. I was actually having a conversation at this point, so I was thinking, let's just restart again. We were trying to learn this, because when I make these previews, I try and learn what works best for sort of showing off the game in any sort of various capacity. And I think we can confirm a restart here and then just run again. This is a work in progress version, Cobra. So work in progress, final version. Well, there'll be a day one patch as well, probably. I mean, I don't know, but there usually is with every single game. So I would expect there to be a day one patch when the game's released next month. But this is all a work in progress. So when it comes to games development, they sort of tend to have a cut-off some months before release of everything that can go in the game, and then they have a period of just bringing everything together. And then those last sort of 3 months are bug testing and optimizations. That's what predominantly bug testing is what goes into that for the final few months. And then when they've got all the bugs out, that's when a bit more optimization and improvement can come in, is when all the core bugs are being removed. So you're in that sort of period right now where they'll be testing the game all the time to find all the elements that should work, that don't, and improve those and make the game as stable and as solid as possible. Certainly in my playing of it, it seems to be a very stable, very polished game at this stage. So I mean, you are looking at a game in development and saying, well, may as well be finished because it runs and performs so well at this stage. Certainly could work for the development team there. And I am a big fan of the Grid game series, but I have to admit its identity, it does have a bit of an identity crisis at the moment, and we're going to talk about that when we review it, because we talked about the name earlier this year, Grid, and calling it Grid seems a bit strange, because is it a remaster or is it a completely new game? It's a bit of everything really, but it could have done with being called, you know, Grid 3 really in my eyes, but that's just me. So racing round, I restarted the race because I was learning in that last race just how to control the car on the throttle and control it in the row. I got taken out there. Wasn't happy about that. As we see, we did a bit of a cheeky rewind, viewers. Cheeky rewind. And any hints of multi-class racing? I believe there probably is, but not in the time I had. I mean, I could have gone into the career mode, but I decided instead to really focus on tracks and handling, just getting my head around that at this stage rather than, you know, in-depth career. I just wanted to try some of the different cars and see how we got on. I would say there's always going to be leaderboards. You always need leaderboards for people to play online. That's just a default now with modern gaming. So leaderboards are what keep people going. What you get out of a game is up to you. I mean, I don't compete a lot online. For a long time, I didn't play online at all. And that was down to the negativity of pressure to perform online. I did a bit of Gran Turismo earlier this year, did quite well. You know, I mean, given the time I put into it, it proved that I still got it. But at the same time, just hit that curb on the inside there. And I thought, do you know what? I thought that was that, basically. Let's move on to the next video and see how we get on there. So, racing around, bit of Brands Hatch. I thought, no, let's get the settings right. Race around Brands Hatch and see how we get on here. Again, I'm liking this wet weather. I'm liking understanding the difference in grid wet weather and just seeing the handling change in the car. Look at the intensity, the speed. Feeling of speed, viewers. There's speed happening there as you go over that start-finish straight. And there's that. Oh, this was a time attack mode now. So I wasn't in a race mode here. I was in a time attack mode. And it seems to place you at a certain point in a race. And then you have to sort of do well. It creates a sort of a scenario, if you like. And it's a very different Brands Hatch to... Kind of reminds me of the Brands Hatch asset that was used in F1 2013. It has a much wider track to it. And I was going way too slow. You see how the curb on the inside caught me? Inside curbs have been my nemesis on this game. There's no doubt about it. This was on the... Hello, Gluten-Free. This was on the controller. Yeah, this was on the controller. So... Oh, Viper is one of the worst cars. Well, I don't know if it is or it isn't, because I'd need to play them all. But certainly it wasn't as easy to drive as some of them. But it depends on your style, and I think that's something which really would depend on how you drive and whether you're driving with a wheel or a pad. I mean, that's another comparison we'll need to make at another time. I was just looking at various different... I was just mucking around with options. I'm just trying different things and seeing how they work. I mean, I've turned off the racing line now because obviously we don't need it really. I mean, it's been on screen, but I don't use racing lines, and I don't tend to use restart rewinds either. If you've ever watched my videos, I'm a very old school gamer. I sit there restarting a course over and over, just restart, restart, restart. You know, I'm not bothered about rewinding. It needs to be a constant flow, a racetrack. It's not about just getting that one corner right. It's about developing yourself. Yes, gluten-free. So this is from the Cody's event. And so this is the preview material I managed to get from the Cody's day. Everybody has this today, so you'll see grid material all over the YouTube and the internet today from all the different content creators if they've got round to putting it up. And so for me, I was going to make a video about this, talking about some of what we see here, and then thinking, well, why don't I share this with you all directly? Why don't I share this all with you directly and just talk about grid and get a bit of your feedback on it? But you can see here again, nice feeling of speed, very wide Brands Hatch, isn't it? Very wide. So and again, progressive on the power there. I was tippy-toeing around, wheel on the grass, ooh, barely keeping it together through there. I can tell you, nearly had a heart attack on the power into the final corner. And very different to other versions. Oh, he was braking very early there. I didn't know what was going on with that car. I wasn't expecting that at all. Carry a lot more speed into corners if you get used to the driving style on here. So relatively speaking, I'm really not too bothered in that sense. I'm just sort of showing you guys some of what we sort of encountered. Going on to the next bit. I don't hang around. I mean, I just go from game to game. Whenever you're recording games, you should always stop recording when you can, because then you create files on your PC. If you create one big video and that file corrupts, then you can end up with no video content. And I've had video events in the past where I've forgotten to press stop and something's gone wrong and it's no video. So here we are, China racing round, and in the rain again. This, I think, F3000 car, is it? I mean, again, I've turned off the racing line and thought, oh dear, I really shouldn't have done that because I have no clue where I'm going now. But I'm using the car in front as a guide to when I should be braking. So this was about progressive. We can see red arrows. That means heavy braking. Kind of I remembered a bit of this bit from an early preview video clip we saw back in June, maybe even May. So we go down into the wonderful tunnels. I do like the good tunnels, viewers, and I do like the tunnels. It is kind of hard to see which way you've got to go until you get there. I was almost looking down the wrong tunnel for a moment and realizing, oh, got to jump over. Great feeling of speed. I thoroughly enjoyed racing this car on this course. I'm not going to lie to you. The sunlight there, the feeling of speed, the course design, it was all looking absolutely gorgeous, really. And the scale of the towers, and you know, really nice feel to it. I'm dominating here, obviously, because ideally I should have put it onto a harder setting, but I was just learning the courses really and the handling. And again, same thing. You know, I mentioned earlier about the high-speed direction change. That was the one thing I was struggling with all the time. And again, here the car sweeps outwards as it goes down the hill. Sweeps a long way out, actually, towards the base of the hill there. So I make a few mistakes there. So that's one lap on the power quickly, feeling the speed, really enjoying this track, but didn't remember hardly any of it. So I'm thinking there's got to be a braking zone here. No, I didn't manage it enough there. So I've got to remember next time. That's the braking zone. And so you see me actually learning the track here. Learning track. I'm way too deep into that corner, trying to get on the power. So what am I trying to do? Hit the brakes. The car's rolling. I tried to, a very small amount of throttle to drive the car round and then get on the power progressively is what's going on there. So there is a bit of grid 2. I mean, the grid, it's kind of vibes of all the grids really are in here. You know, there's times when you've got your grid 1 element, and well, not so much grid 1, more grid 2 and grid auto sport combined really. Less grid 1, it's less intense than grid 1, and I think that's something that's missing in terms of the overall dynamics of it. I think, you know, we're going to talk more when we actually review it, because there's some areas where I'm going to analyse things further when I have more time. But it's one of those things where you know, you can't really review a game until you've played it properly. There's so many people that play a game for an hour and then write a review, and you say, how did they get a review out on day one? It's because they played the game for 2 hours. And you think, no, some of these games need hours of play. You really need to get into it before you justify this or that decision, how it all works. Some games really, until you play them for 10 hours, you don't really unlock everything and get into it, you know. So I really enjoyed this. This track here is what I'm enjoying more and more and more. And really nice visually in terms of, like you say, the sunshine on the track there. And the wet weather, the way it's, you know, it's rained, you can see, and it's just left this damp surface as the sun breaks through. There was one element we don't have, is a rainbow, which I was quite surprised, because if it's raining or there's moisture in the air, sometimes you get a rainbow, and it'd be nice to see, you know, just a thing, you know. You've got so many multicolored elements there that the rainbow would look good. Monaco, there are so many great tracks. Washington actually was a track I enjoyed a lot. But there's some good tracks, and I'd love to see some of those tracks make a return. There is a veritable plethora of tracks available. This was a tricky bit through the tunnel. You can really, as you get good at grid, you're going to almost straight line that. You're going to take it so close to the sides, you're going to find tenths through there, just keeping the car straight, and an extra mile per hour. Skimming the curb on the way in, not too much of the curb on the inside. I'm learning gradually about these tricky inside curves, and you can see I'm learning every lap where the corners were, and memorizing it as I go round. And every lap I've been learning, you know, when I make a mistake, I remember that, and I think, right, there's like through there, that's it, tight. I'm still struggling with this final corner because I want to carry more speed in. I want to sweep the car around, oversteer the car, then get on the power on the exit, and then work your way out on the way down. So again, just a bit too much power that time. It came up on me quicker than I expected, but learning the track, loving it so far. That was my favourite track so far. I mean, and do you know what the track felt like? Well, we're going to take a look at it in a moment. I'm going to tell you what it felt like to me, because I mentioned it as well to one of the Codemasters guys that were there. Probably Chris, community manager again. I was mentioning that, and I'll explain actually when we play it in the drive what I gives me a vibe of. But it gave me a vibe I like, and I'll explain that vibe in just a moment. But here we are, bit of replay, bit of feeling of speed, racing round. Look at that, it's going to be great. Really nice to see, and I'm enjoying that immensely at the moment. Just racing around, nice. You see the dampness on the tyres there. Lots of nice little spot effects. The chrome on the wheels, detailing car. Lots and lots of great graphical details. It's very polished, as you would expect of grid. Really, it's such a sort of developed product over the years. And racing through the tunnel, I just thoroughly enjoyed that. That was a really good race run. And learned a lot doing that. I'm going to move on now to the next video, because I know time is limited. I think this is the right one here, so we're going to move on to the next one. And it's the same track, but in dry conditions, having a race. I thought, let's just do this now and go over a race in dry conditions. And this is where it really came to me. I mentioned earlier my conversation about it. Billy Strange is here. Hello, Billy Strange. And I mentioned it earlier. It gave me a real Ridge Racer vibe, this circuit. I had Ridge Racer music ringing in my head, and as anyone knows me knows I'm a massive Ridge Racer fan. So for me, there's elements. This first bit was like Macau, actually, with Nice cars. I mentioned this bit's like Macau, and the second half of the track is like Ridge Racer. As soon as we go through the tunnel, it's just Ridge Racer, and you just imagine that sort of Ridge Racer vibe. So in a way, you've got old school arcade colour here, Sega colour, blue skies. You know, you could be in Daytona, you could be in Ridge Racer. It's got that vibe here. Love a good tunnel, and this is a good one. And having said that, the lighting looks less dynamic now than it did in the early video, which is going to be something I'm going to compare and look at some point. Maybe that's when you're racing at night, it changes it. Also, the rain stops when you go in the tunnel. That's an obvious thing, but also stops when you go onto bridges. And I thought that was a nice detail as well. It's a nice little touch in terms of how rain was raining, rain stops, come back. And also it's pointed out to me that if your engineer is talking to you as you enter the tunnel, his voice will cut out because the radio transmission cuts off. I think that's a nice touch, something we don't get a lot in games really. It's too clear, you know. Steve, I'm not actually playing it right now. I'm literally showing you guys a video from an event, and then obviously for us there'll be a hands-on. Same time everyone else gets it in the next couple of weeks, again next few weeks. But then we'll go through. There was some exterior car cam earlier in the video, so which you can watch later. And there'll be some no comment gameplay on the channel to support this as well. So it's so I've enjoyed this. I've enjoyed this for what it is. You have to look at this as it's an arcade sort of. It's funny. I've never liked the term simcade. Well, here we go. Look, what are we doing now? We're reducing now. So through every race, I've been reducing these assists down and down and down. And I've been saying to myself, right, let's start with all assists on, and let's gradually remove the assists. So I know what it's like with assists on, assists medium, assists off. Let's see how we get on. So we've gradually taken ourselves down, and now we've taken the assists off completely. Let's see how we get on now. So what does this mean? It means at the start I'm more progressive. I'm feeling the rumble, which is very well conveying to me the feeling of grip. More tentative through there, you see. I'm not getting slamming on the power now. I'm thinking, ooh, I'm feeling this vibration, this limit of traction, and I don't know where the limit is. So I'm going to gradually, progressively improve. I found that the progression, I've got the power now. The traction control isn't holding me back, so I'm getting progressively better exit speed. That's working well for me. For some reason, with stability control and traction control off, I feel the car's somehow more stable. It's sweeping in better to faster corners for me. It's just the way I'm driving, it's the way I play. I guess it's the kind of sim side in me that's logically understanding what the car should be doing a bit better with assists off than assists on, which is quite interesting, because assists on, you are just flat out sometimes into corners. With assists off, you can't do that. You have to brake. And this is when the game goes from being a sort of an arcade game to more simmy. I'm driving it in a sort of strangely in a more sim-like way in terms of the acceleration and braking. You can't muck around with it. You put your foot down and the car will just spin out in an instant. I can tell you right now, it's very sensitive under the finger, and you will see plenty of mistakes in a moment when I get plunged into a challenge that I wasn't expecting. So enjoyed that. Good fun. Great first test. That was good. Gluten. Did I meet YouTubers? I didn't meet any YouTubers. Now I was there on media day. There's a couple of random media there, but not YouTubers. This on the day I went. But the YouTubers were all there the day before, so no doubt they'll have stacks of content running on that as well. So we can see here again the replay, just daytime. Makes a huge transition because also you've got way more grip. There is a considerable drop in grip in wet weather conditions. What does that mean? It means understeer. It means understeer, and then you get on the power and you get sort of oversteer, and it's all over the place. I mean, so you really got to be slow in, progressive, and then apply the power when you've got traction and you're going in a straight line. If you apply the power before you straighten the car up, well, you're not going to be straight for very long, put it that way. So you really do need to work on that. And again, I love a good replay, so I like to record some of the replays and just check those out. Not, as I say, not as shaky and dynamic as old school grid replays in that sense, but nice to see the different variants of cars that are there. And as I say, it's a game that's sort of first time for me to play it, so that's why I'm sort of sharing with you guys all this knowledge now as I would on a video. But I figured this time, hey, let's just do it live, and then I can, if you have questions, I can always answer them or just ignore them. I won't ignore them. Instead, I will continue with sharing my vast knowledge of random gamingness with you guys on this stream. So yeah, going around that final corner, that was the one. It comes up me on the exit, and that was every time. I didn't quite understand where the exit point was there, but once I know it, I'll absolutely nail it, and that was good fun as well. So bit of racing there in the day, and I'm just going to double check here now. The next video we're going to look at here as well is a short one. I think we move straight on now to this one. Okay, so now we're going to look at online multiplayer, and online multiplayer. They set up a multiplayer session with all the other people that were there. The only problem is I'd literally just done that one race with assists off, hadn't practiced in the rain, and this is where, whoa, okay, this is a whole different ball game now. So I'm thinking, damn, not driven these cars, it's raining. I need to change my viewpoint somewhere here as well. Let's just go away and find a viewpoint that works. Okay, that works for me. Nice view of the road and proceedings. So racing round then, and good getaway at the start, good traction, and there lies my first problem. Gently on the power, and the car just completely spins out. And I'm like, right, okay. What is the point where grip snaps away from me? I have no idea at this stage. No idea where grip is snapping away from me. It's a learning process. So racing behind everyone else. There's lots of bashing and barging going on as well. And there's a guy right behind me as well at the moment, I think. And he's right on top of me. And I'm just trying to follow these guys. And just at the moment I'm more concentrating on, oh goodness, I'm coming to Cop's Corner, I have no idea how to take it. I'm slowing down a bit, and okay, not slowing down enough, and it's very slippery. I can tell you right now, this is knife edge stuff for me. Properly, look, I'm understeering, completely offline going into these corners, slowing down way more than I need to just to keep the car on the track. Let's slow it down, be progressive, tippy-toeing on the power, and on the power now I can breathe. So it's tricky through there, but I'm learning. You just simply need to drive it differently, and that's it really. So that's something which is going to need some learning as this race continues. So going around now, and I'm thinking, right, calm. There's the competitor in me is deeply frustrated, but I just can't seem to get anywhere at the moment. And I think I might have taken a knock there as well, or maybe it was just the curb that took me out there. I have no idea. Again, I didn't know why I crashed or spun round at that point. So all I can assume is it's going to be, wheel spin on the curbs. Don't get on that sausage curb in the rain. So now I'm last. This is not good representation. But I'm the only one with no assists on. Everyone's got full assists on, and I tell you, it does make a huge difference. So now we have to unlearn what we have learned again. What have we learned? We learned about the spinning out there again. It nearly spun out again. I'm finding that limit of traction. I'm thinking, right, I'm understanding this now. I know why I span out before. I feel the slip point in the car a little bit more. These cars actually are designed to have traction control on, not off. So I would say a traction control setting of around 2 or 3, you'd be fine. But with it completely off, I'm just really struggling to get on the power in these conditions. Trying to take it nice and consistent through onto the exit, a consistent power line, so you brake and you keep some throttle through the corner and use the throttle to exit the corner. That's kind of the system I'm using. Braking early, getting the car into the corner, more progressive on the throttle through the corner gives me a perfect line on the exit and flat on the power. Trying to turn in early here, bit of understeer in the car still, but I'm trying to counter for that this time. Turning in early, that's it, sweeping the car into the corner, braking down. You go down a gear and then go down another gear again there, so you'd be maybe third or fourth gear through there. On the power quickly, flat on the power this time now, so now I'm gaining on everybody. That guy's gone off, but I'm still struggling on these final 2 corners. Stowe here is always a tricky corner. You brake late and you turn in, and this is where these high-speed corners are still catching me out. Turning in, getting on the power, but the car was I felt it bouncing around a bit, and I felt some vibration that the grip just wasn't happening. So the car was really struggling through those corners, and again here, struggling through that. I just couldn't get on the power here. I just couldn't get on the power through sections. If you've played many games, I guess Forza Motorsport would be a good example, where when you turn off traction control, the car is really struggling. Well, I mean, spray is actually something from Rainy Steve there, who likes a bit of rain, no doubt. Spray slows games down right now. Particle effects slow down frame rate. So we're in this point where, like Gran Turismo could do more spray, WRC8 could do more smoke, dust. This could do more spray, slows everything down. So it is one of those things that next gen you will see a lot more in the way of particle effects and various effects that they can do with that sort of condition. But they are the things that slow down a lot of frame rates these days, so that's why you don't see things as accurate as you would like. Do they have a penalty system for bad online racers? Tanoop is asking. I would assume they do, but we didn't have anything switched on here for sure. It was all a little bit aggressive, and I was way behind now. As you can see, I'm finally getting to grips gradually with the with these controls. I wouldn't say I'm completely on it yet, and again they're making a mistake, but with assists off I found it very difficult to drive. I think had I had assists on, I would be way down the road and wouldn't have spun out in the first place, and it would have been an easy victory. So this was a good learning experience, but I just found like here the car was really difficult, and I just had to let him by, because cars with traction control could just go through there in a high-speed corner, and cars without it really couldn't. But again here I just can't get on the power here. I just have to let people go until you're straightening the car, because it's a turning acceleration zone, and again there's suddenly you can pick up on people, but it's a turning acceleration zone, so it's very tricky in grid. Those are the elements that I think just need to look at in terms of how you're performing. I personally would say traction control on with these cars, which they're designed to have traction control on in real life, would work much better in terms of your overall performance. So there we have it, and that finishes that race basically. We're now going to go on to another race in the dry in just a moment, and while you're waiting there I'm going to be straight back, hold on, and then we're going to start straight back, and then we're going to start. I have a cup of tea sitting there, and I've got to save these teas. There we are. Oh, got to get under the microphone and ready for the dry. There we are. That was a nice transition there. Nice transition with a cup of tea. Racers always like a cup of tea at the racetrack. I guess you guys have coffee in the US if Billy Strange is still here. But no, we have the phone is ringing. Never mind, ignore that, viewers. And so now we're going to go on to a dry race here as well. So let's just take a look how we get on in the dry and see what the racing is like for me this time. Well, dry in at night. Now, I ran this track earlier. It was the first track I ran, and it was challenging in the Formula One car, but I understood the stiffness of the car on the inside curbs, so I knew to avoid those would be the way forward, basically. So this phone will stop ringing in a moment, viewers, and then we'll be able to crack on. But we got Tom here as well, and so hello, Tom. Hello, Tom. Always having a cup of tea. So accelerating, concentrating on accelerating there. Everyone's mucking around. Obviously, I'm the only one with assists off, so I've got to be really progressive. A little bit of a knock from somebody there. It all gets a bit rough and ready in this racing, but this is grid action, and now we're on the power here. So just trying to get past these guys. Not flat through there, but a lift, turn in, braking, turn in, don't hit the inside curb too much, gently on the power, tippy-toeing through this corner. I don't feel comfortable at all. I feel nervous hitting that inside curb. It lifted the car. Oh goodness, that didn't feel right on the power. Playing at night on a track I barely know. I'm following the arrows and I'm thinking, right, that looks like a braking corner, and I took too much curb there, but luckily he made a mistake as well. So, but look at that, when you've got traction control you can make a mistake, go sideways and literally save it again. So it gives you an idea of how much performance you get from traction control in terms of saving the car. It really is crazy speed through these night streets. But luckily I remembered this section from earlier when I did it, but I didn't know what the braking was there, and the corner was harsher than I thought it was, so I'm trying to learn. We're both ghosting there from hitting the wall. This is a competitive race here. This chap clearly knew what he was doing in terms of his racing, and he was very competitive. So we were racing around, and I'm just thinking, right, it's just, I know it's a higher speed corner here, so gently progressive, flat out through here, then there's a lift, and on the power again through there, so there's no braking there, and now we're flat to the finish to finish the first lap. Big action. Tanoop says it reminds me more of PGR4 than a grid game. It does, doesn't it? It does have those PGR4 vibes to it. So no, Tom was saying earlier, you never see about a cup of tea. Never. I need tea. Is my lifeblood. I need my tea. So now we're really going for it. Now under pressure from the guy who's right behind me. He's literally on me all the way. The car's moving around a lot. It's very difficult to get out the slow corners. I'm having to brake very early, progressively through, gently on the power, tippy-toeing. I can't just put my foot down, as it were. I've got to be a bit more. Okay, now we can go. Braking, a bit more. And I can see every time on the corners, he's just gaining on me, hand over fist. And now through this corner, don't hit the inside curb, taking a wide line on the exit, now on the power, flat through this section, storming through the city streets at night. This is Havana, isn't it? Racing fast, look at that, powerful cars. Grunt, braking earlier this time. Made a mistake here before, didn't we? Let's brake a bit more. Still going too wide, We need more power, we need more braking, we need to do more. Making a mistake and then losing time there on the lead. I really thought that was it. Again, that was an example where I made a mistake, tried to get on the power too quickly, and I cannot get across to you guys just how difficult it was to get on the power in these cars when you had no traction control turned on. Every corner is a struggle here. So now I'm thinking, right, calm. I'm not calm, I'm annoyed. I want to win this race, I need to get back into it. So let's try and string a lap together sensibly. There's a nice gap between first, second and third. Let's take a podium, let's go for it. So going to braking zone here, very bumpy, and first place made a mistake. I almost did as well actually, but it's very tricky through there because if you hit a bump you get a bit of air and then suddenly your brakes aren't working when you're in the air. So that's how it's easy to make a mistake. Let's give me he's right behind me now, so I've got a bit of oh no he's not, he's with third place, and I've just think myself, right, I've got a bit of a breather, let's get me through this tricky twisty section. And the two guys behind me are having a titanic battle with each other, and that's slowing them down a bit, but I'm just really struggling through this section at the moment. But I know this is my slow section, so if I just concentrate on this, then victory is almost upon us, and we'll get there. And I'm just trying to get through this next corner, higher speed corner here now, flat on the power. I can see he's got past second place now, so he's hard on me as well. And now I know, goodness, it's not far to end this lap, but I've got to keep it together. Just be sensible. That means not taking risks. It means braking a bit earlier. Braking earlier this time. Braking. Gently on the power. Much better. So I took a slower line through that corner then. But then, this corner, I was on the wrong side because I couldn't remember which way to do it. Because before I'd crashed and completely forgotten it. So I've completely messed up these last few corners. That's enabled the other two cars right behind me to close up quite a bit. But coming round now, I know this is a semi-high speed corner, which I know is followed by a lift corner, and then I know we're okay. So just take this, lift on the power, beautiful. And that was a good win. So we had two races there, didn't we? We had a race where it all went bad, and then we had a race where it went better, didn't we? Where I learned the traction, the feeling of traction, and everything else. Now, Billy Strange mentioned earlier, so which grid does this feel more like, 1, 2 or Autosport? Well, I would actually say that for me it feels less like 1 and probably more like 2 and Autosport in different cars at different times at this stage, in terms of this sort of quick look at the game. That's not a deep analysis at this stage, because it's just based on one, I mean, if you think about it, each race that you're seeing here, Billy, is you got 5 minutes, 5 laps in one car onto the next car. It's very difficult, because I haven't played Grid 1 and 2 for quite a long time. I should actually download them and have a go on them at some point. But not many people watched videos on Grid. That was the thing one of the reasons why I sort of gave up on it at the time. Was I was doing Grid Autosport videos, and the viewer numbers for Drive Club and Grid Autosport weren't there. So I just said, right, well, focus on other things then, and that's kind of what you do with YouTube sometimes. But a final quick run at the end of the day, a quick run in this car. I wasn't really bothered about skill or driving or perfection here. I just wanted to look at the graphics for a video edit, really. I know, and that was before I came on here and talked to you guys a bit about this. And I'm going to talk more through your comments in a moment. Now I've got through the core video. But racing around here in Japan, and I always liked the Japanese circuits in the original games. and I was racing around and thinking, you know, there are elements here that I kind of remember, but you know, I've played so many racing games in the last 5 years. I mean, I play an average of sort of 40 to 50 different racing games a year, so I've probably played about 300 racing games since playing this. So it's, you know, and that is like 10 or 15 tracks that you play in each game. It's a lot since then to remember. So you come back to these tracks and you think, oh, I remember some of these. I vaguely remember going around some of these corners, and of course I think I've still got these assists off, so I really should have turned them up by now, but there wasn't time for that, and I didn't have time to restart races either, hence a bit of cheeky rewind, let him by. And I always enjoyed driving around Japan. I thought it was very pretty in the way it was designed, and it kind of gave me those Initial D vibes. It's such a shame we don't have a proper Initial D game, you know, Japanese Midnight Mountain Racer game that's properly done. I'd love that. A Midnight Mountain Racer rather than drifter game as well. I mean, drifting is, the Midnight Mountain Racers was crazy guys, and you know, I'd really like to capture that culture in a game, and you never really get that. But the sunlight, the bloom, the lighting, the look, the reflections, it does take it all quite a long way forward here through these trees, and I really thought this looked great. I was looking more at the environment than I was at the driving here. I just thought, this looks great, really, really nice. And then I just lost concentration and thought, well, actually I should have been looking at the driving rather than anything else, and didn't rewind far enough. So that is a look at Grid. Just to finish off a few of your questions, if you have any questions about it, do let me know. I'll just have a quick cycle through, yeah, thanks Billy. I mean, you know, we'll have a team chat on this no doubt in a few weeks time. It's been quite busy recently with all the WRC8 content, so now that game's released we've got a bit more time to focus on other games, and of course we'll look at all the other racing games coming up. There's a few coming up, isn't there? Truck Driver and Grid on the Switch, and I'm going to be looking a bit more at Switch racing games in the next few weeks as well. The Japanese circuits are really nice, Tom. Really, really nice circuits. I do enjoy these circuits, and you know, they do have a nice vibe. I think I just end the recording here now and finish. And so then what we'll do is, now we've completed all of the core Grid gameplay in this preview, I just thought I'd just have a little answer to some of your questions for a minute and stuff like that. It's been an intense amount of information, but I just wanted to give you guys an idea of my brain, how it works when I go to an event and I sit down, I play games, and I have, right, this is a set amount of time, this is what I need to do. I need to get a feel for what Grid is all about. There's no point delving into the career mode when I know I'm going to see 1% of career mode. It's not worth it. Let's talk about things. Graphics, nice and polished. Audio, nice and polished. Let's see how they build on it, develop it in the final game in a few weeks' time. And we'll look at the full review as well when Kevin sorts that out. That'll be great, or when he gets a copy to be able to do it. Funkadelic is asking, do you think the game will do well? That's a difficult question to ask. That's a question I might answer more in the review. I think that the market's changed a lot. I think that it's the name Grid, not Grid 3. It's just Grid. Is it a remaster? Is it a new game? Is it an arcade game? Is it a sim? All these questions we had 3 months ago, we still have these questions. Is there a market for it? It's like we talk sometimes about Toka Touring Car, don't we? And everyone says, oh, I'd love there to be a Toka Touring Car game. Yeah, that'll work in the UK, but it won't be big around a lot of the world. I mean, they need the motorsports that suit other local nations and stuff like that. So I think that it's difficult to say at this stage. It's difficult to say. I don't, in a way, I kind of feel it'd been nice to have got access to the game properly a few months ago and actually really understood what the game was all about. It tries to tick a lot of boxes, doesn't it? And as I mentioned, you've got 12 circuits, but probably 3 of them are good for one type of car and 3 of them are good for another type of car. I think if they had all of the Grid circuits ever made in one game, a Grid world, yeah, that would transform it significantly. But I think at the moment, you know, we're going to look at a Formula 1 car here. How many cars in the games to support, you know, suit a Formula 1 car? You know, it's fun arcade driving, but where's esports going to go and what's it all about in terms of its racing. Well, let's have to wait and see. It is ambiguous, and it's it's a strange one, isn't it, with the marketing on this particular game, because as I say, from the name onwards, it's been a bit confused in terms of what it's trying to do. Is it a sim? Is it an arcade? What's the esports scene going to be like for a game like this? What do players want with the longevity? What support to each mode? What DLC plans are there? In terms of the amount of DLC that could transform this game entirely if we had a full roadmap of what those plans were. But either way, I mean, that's something that I think the next course, again, when we get the review copy in a month from now, it'll be a finished game. There'll probably be new elements that aren't in here. There'll be online elements we can look at more closely. We'll probably have a roadmap in terms of DLC plans. And the DLC plans, if it is free DLC, and there's a lot of DLC planned, it could radically change the longevity of this game for its chosen audience. And there is an audience for it, there's no doubt about it. I mean, there is an audience for it. It's just, how do Codemasters want to market it? And I think if I was to detach myself, I would say there's probably a week one audience, which is your average gamers and your arcade gamers, and people just want to play it and be good at it and feel good. And Grid is great for feeling good as a driver. You can pick up and play it and feel amazing. It's very hard for someone like me to beat a beginner sometimes on a game like this, because the assists are so strong that it really does make it quite challenging, as you could see. However, there's a lot you can get from it, and the question came up earlier was Rainy Steve was asking if I was using a wheel. I'm using a controller, so this was all done with a controller, which tells you essentially that the game plays well with a controller. I'm not a controller guy, and all of this is done with a controller, so it's playing well with a controller. Codemasters are always generally very good with controllers, but I'll be playing it with a wheel most of the time, probably. I don't know, most of the time. I'll be streaming here, and now I've got a streaming setup separate to my wheel setup. It means I can play more games on controller, and there'll be more non-racing games on here as well, just of me playing games normally. So in that sense it plays well, but I think Grid for me I've always liked playing Grid with a wheel. I've always found there's an intensity to it. I mean, I played the original in 2008 with a controller at the time a lot, because I only had a controller. I didn't have a wheel back then. And I played it enormously. In fact, I visited Codemasters when they finished Grid, and I mentioned to somebody recently when I visited Codemasters in 2008, they showed me how they made Grid all behind the scenes. They didn't turn off their monitors. It was wonderful. You could see everything, and they finished the game that day, and then they printed it off on a CD burner and gave me a copy of Grid. The concept of that would never happen today. I mean, everything's so controlled with code and what you see. And in game studios, when you go into a game studio now, invariably they switch off all the monitors and you can't see anything. It's very rare that they show you the tools they use to make the games like they used to, because they don't want you seeing, I guess, if you were relaying information to other developers as to how things were done, they might not want that info relayed or something like that. But I do miss the openness of game development in that way. Any crossplay? I have no idea, Tom, in terms of crossplay. I think crossplay would work very well on a game like this, because when a game sells moderately well, it needs to bring those audiences together to keep a good, stable online audience. And I think that would suit this game down to the ground. So we'll just have to wait and see on that. Minak asks, is it going to be a demo? I would doubt there's going to be a demo. I mean, I don't know for certain, so I have no idea. But with demos these days, the demos require so much time in terms of testing and development that a lot of game developers don't do them, because they just don't have the resource to put a team on that. They just keep the team working on the game itself and developing that. Mark says, have I played V-Rally 4? Oh, asking Billy Strange, have you played V-Rally 4? I played V-Rally 4 a fair bit last year. It was way better on the PC than it was on the console. I will just say that for V-Rally. It was a shame the console version, the console frame rate didn't have it, but that was one of those things. This is running on the PC, but the console version appeared to be running on the Pro, I saw it very briefly, so I really couldn't say, but it seemed to be pretty much identical from what I could see, but there was no deep analysis there, so I really couldn't say with that. Rumba says, is it possible to set the time of day to random in free play, or do you need to set up a specific setting each time you race? That's a good question. I'd have to admit, I didn't memorize all the settings. For me, predominantly, because I was setting up to record rain or dry, I didn't necessarily take all of the settings in, so there might be some settings that are in there that enable that. I've no doubt there will be some randomness at some point, especially in, I would assume, in online modes, but of course in career mode as well, there'll be various challenges you have set up. So, but it's not a dynamic transition in that sense, so they can do more visually with it, setting it a certain way. And that's grid there. So is Grid World, Marco says, is Grid World Series like Grid World Series? I've no idea. I don't know what the whole structure is of the one-player mode, or how it's going to take you through as a driver, or what your driver journey is going to be. I mean, that's something I liked about Race Driver Grid, was the journey. So when I played through the one-player at the time, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Do you think Fernando Alonso feature will just be his cars? I'm going to bring on some of the chat on screen while we're talking a bit of chat. Do I think it'll be rather than just the cars? That's interesting, isn't it? The Fernando Alonso thing is a funny thing, and I'm just going to see if I can bring that up here. Bear with me, viewers. See if I can bring this up here. No, that's not that one. That's the wrong one. So that's the chat is not working. Oh well. So chat's not working. I'm going to try deleting that. Trying to bring the chat into the conversation here. Okay. Let's just add chat. And we can't add chat. So chat is not available. So we can't add chat into the conversation here, there we are, chat box. Let's see if that works. And that video's ended, so we'll just find another video to add and go to that. Let's find this one. So, what was we talking about there? I completely forgot what I was talking about. Fernando Alonso, we'll see if the chat works in a moment as well. Fernando Alonso, there was all this talk about Fernando Alonso's involvement, wasn't there? I find it's quite strange, the Fernando Alonso announcement. Fernando Alonso is meant to be in the game, his own academy drivers, his team, and there's been almost very little chat about it. There was an interview with Fernando where he wasn't saying much about Grid, was he? He was just like talking about racing games in general. We go, the chat is now working. Oh no, that's not what we want to do. Select the right one. There we go. Let's just reduce that down a bit there. There we are. Beautiful. And then he didn't really talk much about it in the interview in terms of Fernando's involvement. And then Fernando Alonso invested in Motorsport Network and their games division a few months ago, which seems like a conflict of interest when he's in a game and investing in another rival games company, potentially. So it's a bit of an odd one where Fernando's concerned. But we have Fernando cars in the game, we have the Fernando branding, but I don't know. I think it's a strange one Fernando to be involved in a way, because you'd expect him to be involved in more of a simulator, in getting people into actual driving, so it's an odd one. I don't think we're going to see Fernando in the game, but you never know. There might be a "yeah, you did it" sort of thing, video game, down, so the Zhejiang circuit. Did we have any footage of that? I don't know. I don't know. If not, then I don't. This is just footage today, Tim Lee. So it's just footage I've recorded. And we'll see. Funkadelica. Yeah, conflict of interest is a funny thing, isn't it, when things come up? You know, I think for Jeff, you know, it's okay to be involved in projects and still be neutral. I know people find that hard to believe, but that's a bit like me saying, hey, I'm going to write to Codemasters now all the things that I think would make Grid a better game, and then if they sent me a final copy of the game, I'd just review it as it was. I wouldn't alter my opinion of it. I just say what I see is in front of me. I think it's the same with Jeff. You know, he can be involved in a project, but ultimately when you look at video games reviews as a whole, you have to take a step back and say, well, this is what it is. You have to be very objective for game design, because I think the moment you get caught in the game development bubble and you think, oh, we've developed something amazing, then you're not seeing that you are one of a galaxy of stars. Of the 50 to 150 games released a week, you have to put yourself now. Your leaderboard, that means everything to you when you're competing online, is one of 10,000 leaderboards that everyone's competing on. Nobody cares too much apart from you, a few friends, and that community. Outside of that, nobody cares. And that's the thing about every single game that you release in terms of racing. Enjoy it, play it, don't invest your life and your heart and soul into that leaderboard. There are many to play and compete. Enjoy the gaming. That's my main point there. But no, conflicts of interest, I think sometimes, or I think where Fernando was concerned, it is more of a conflict of interest, because he is directly creating, by investing, a rival racing gaming company. So that seems a bit odd to me, but who knows? Who knows? So asking NBC Sports Network cutscene in Grid. I hope not, because then that would cause content creators all kinds of problems with making videos on games. So let's hope there's not anything like that sort of gets in the way, because I just see NBC logos coming up and suddenly copyright strikes from NBC, and it'd just be a nightmare. It looks fantastic. It looks fantastic in the web. So certainly it is very nice. And Rainy Steve was saying earlier about Fernando Alonso, it would be great to have a league where you race Fernando for real. Well, it might be an option where you race Fernando's esports teams. I think that might be, and maybe every now and again they might get Fernando involved to have a race on that. Who knows? I mean, there's no doubt Fernando plays racing games on a regular basis. He's a keen gamer, a keen racer. But it wasn't always this way. You know, I know that Rubens Barrichello is a keen racing gamer, but 10 years ago, Rubens could not stand racing games. He thought they were rubbish. He couldn't play them, and he was useless in the F1 simulator as well. He had to really, he just didn't get it. He thought it was absolute rubbish. And then he had to train in it. And clicked one day. Suddenly he realised, I see, you're braking at the same point, you're driving it. And then suddenly his passion for racing gaming absolutely exploded, and he really got it. And I think that's great when you see a racing driver who just doesn't get it. I saw it with Johnny Herbert as well. You know, when Johnny Herbert first played Gran Turismo back in 2010, he was playing it, and I remember there was this crowd gathered round, and he didn't do that great. He did all right, and you could tell he was braking. His feel wasn't there, but there was an annoyance in him as a competitor. He wanted to win, because Johnny is a fierce competitor. I came back 2 years later. He was racing as good as the top GT Academy players. If he wanted to, he could be a top esport player. He had applied himself to the way, the driving visually rather than seat of your pants. It's not the same as real life driving, but the fundamentals of braking and how you race are still there, and drivers can adapt. I don't know about the cast voices. There's an American guy, an Australian lady that are in the game, that do the announcements to the races. but which I think is quite nice. It gives a nice sort of echoey vibe. It's nicely done from the audio man, as ever. You know, Dave Sullivan and crew, I doff my cap to them. But you know, it's something that, you know, we'll wait and see in terms of how it all comes together. But I don't know the casting for those various roles, so we'll wait and see. Now I'm just going to check a couple of things on here, so excuse me if there's any kind of audio issues, and then we'll sort of conclude what we're doing on the stream today. Just take the last few of your questions, and then we'll call it a day. I hope you've enjoyed this stream today, taking a look at Grid. I'll be uploading this to the YouTube channel as well, so you can watch it on the YouTube channel later, and of course there'll be some no comment gameplay on the channel. Apologies for the sound problems at the beginning of the video. Again, I'm still learning in terms of streaming how best to put this all together and make it so that we can run more previews live rather than recorded, and that way I can have a bit of interaction with you guys in terms of gameplay. And you know, you guys are buying games. It's important that you have someone that you can talk to who can at least give you some response. I'm not saying we can always talk about everything, because sometimes there's embargoes and reviews and rules about what you can show and can't show. Cars you can drive in, cars you can't. That's because of licensing and stuff like that. But slicks on a wet track in this replay annoy me. You know, they look great. I think the tyres look good. I mean, it doesn't matter too much to me. It's not something I necessarily... There's no drying line. There's no drawing water vapour from the track or anything like that. It's the whole concept of a sun being out while it's raining all the time in all these racing games. No, it's really realistic in that sense. But it works and it looks nice for what it is. Remember, all these effects are pre-baked in that sense. You know, it's not dynamic in that sense. I mean, I'll probably annoy the game developers, because they'll probably say to me, well, actually, there's a lot of, you know, volumetric lighting and stuff like this going on. But yes, but it's not dynamic, is it? It's not weather changing live and track conditions changing and drying lines and all that sort of stuff. So we'll wait and see. Well, Monarco, you're asking me many questions I have no idea on when it comes to voices. They should be using my voice, though. My pleasant tones should be present in every racing game with full racing voice, so we can give you a nice radio voice, nice and chilled before the races. That's just what you need. Alan FM. Yeah, that's what you need. And let's send you to sleep. Bit of racing, followed by a nice cup of chill. Absolutely, Rumba. Absolutely. Well, you know, I mean, you wait till you see me do Twitch sings. Eh? It's coming. It's coming. Are we doing? There'll be a Christmas singing junket on this channel. It's gonna be bad. It's gonna be. I can't sing to save my life, but it's gonna be bad. There are actually a few videos that have been made that haven't been finished and shown yet. I've got a classic car show which is still in production, which is going to come together soon. It's going to look at classic cars in video games. It's going to be a little bit cheesy, a little bit weird, a little bit unusual. And a big thanks to all of you who are following and tuning in as well for the first time. We've got lots of new viewers on the channel. I see, you know, people are always tuning in and saying hello, and it's great to have all the new viewers tuning in and seeing what's going on here. And let's just wait and see what else we've got. We're just going to keep on sharing these videos while we're chatting. There we go, back to the daytime again. The one problem you can't do online streaming at the moment is I can't skip to a certain point in the video. You can't interact with the video at all on Streamlabs, and there's no way to do that, which is a bit frustrating. But at least you guys can see the videos and enjoy it, you know, for what it is. So yeah, it's one of those things. Steve Retro Game says yes, you can. You can on OBS, but you can on OBS, but there's no interact on. You can on OBS, but you can't on Streamlabs OBS. There's no interact option. No, there's no interact option on Streamlabs OBS. I have no, well, I don't have it. I don't have an interact option. There is no interact option. So it's one of those things, and it's a pain because I can't do anything. I literally don't have that option, Steve. It's not on there for me. So because I use interact quite a bit when I'm using OBS, doing browser stuff with E3 and stuff like that. So I'd interact with the YouTube video, make it live. But when it comes to actual videos running from the PC itself, then obviously I can't. I mean, I've got a sort of camera movement as well. When I read, it's moving that way a bit. It's got to be there. Really. There we are. So we're getting set up. It's been nice setting up the streaming. I hope you've enjoyed the stream today, viewers. And Monaco's asking me to look at the chat. And you've got your question. I have no idea about people. I've no idea about honestly, cast, people involved, other names of drivers. I've no clue. For me, I'm just looking at the racing itself, and really just that's been it in this video. It's been a detailed hour of racing gaming action. I hope you've enjoyed everything in this video, and I think that's about it really now. If there's any more questions, viewers, do let me know right now, or I'm going to wrap up and call it a day. But it has been nice talking with you all and getting this chat done. As I say, this stream will go up onto YouTube, and then we will be ready to go. Ready to go, viewers. But of course, racing around Brands Hatch there, I did like this. Brilliant. I'm glad you've all enjoyed it anyway. Thanks, Rumba. Appreciate it. I'm calling you Rumba, aren't I? But Rum Before. Rum Before, not Rumba. I'm reading it wrong from where I am. It's no good. I don't know, Monaco. Jedaz, just join. What's the consensus? Consensus is we're not reviewing the game right now, so we can't give a consensus. But you can see it in the stream. We can't give a consensus because that would be a review, and I can't review the game. So it's one of the problems of a preview is you can't review it. But suffice to say, it's somewhere between. It's got grid, bit of grid 2, bit of grid auto sport. Bundle it together, mix in some extra stuff, and you know what we've got. And what the hell kind of game is it? I have no idea. Is it a sim? Is it arcade? It's a bit of everything. It's just all bundled into one. But I enjoyed what I played in the nature I played it. And I think that's it for now. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, on this Friday afternoon. As ever, I'll be doing more streams and doing more and more in the future in terms of streaming new preview content as well as chats. I'm also going to be doing some conversations on Formula 1. So I'll be doing Formula 1 streams at some point. I don't know if it's going to be following the race or the next day after the race, and discussing that with you guys and getting my feelings across. Those blogs, some of which will appear on YouTube, and I can record my live blogs here as well. So certainly it gives me a chance to do a lot more content. But that's it from me for now. Thanks for tuning in, and there'll be more from me very soon.